My portfolio saw a massive jump up in the month of November, so in this video, I'm going to be going over exactly how much my dividend portfolio is worth and how much dividend income I made in the month of November. And to go over this, we're going to be jumping into my do-it-yourself investor toolkit, where we'll be looking at a few different tabs that will really break down exactly how much dividend income I'm making and going in depth into my dividend portfolio overall. And like always, if you'd like to join a community of dividend investors, be able to download any of my spreadsheets, then you can head over to my Patreon page at the link in the description. I'd also like to quickly say thank you to Seeking Alpha for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. Now, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I've been trying to aggressively contribute to my portfolio. Last month was actually the most I've ever contributed to my portfolio, and now I can say this month was actually the least I've contributed to my portfolio over the past year. And we can still see, despite this, I by far hit a huge all-time high with my portfolio value. Now, what is the reasoning behind this? Well, if we jump over to Seeking Alpha, we can see in the past month alone, the S&P 500 up nearly 10%, and my portfolio definitely reaped the benefits of this jump up. I'm now up around 13.61% with my dividend portfolio value of around $143,000. If we come down here, I'll zoom in just a little bit more, and we can see my cash position now sitting at around 9%. Now, last month, this got all the way down to around 4 or 5%. So obviously, that was something I wanted to focus on building back up, so I'll be ready when opportunities in the market present themselves. We can see my total holdings still sitting at around 32. Now, long term, I would like to get this a little closer to 25, but that is a work in progress. Now, if we come over here, we can see my cost and market value tab. Obviously, SCHD by far my biggest position, which you can see here, but essentially this is just a way to see my cost versus market value. Again, here's Microsoft, good example. Cost basis of around $8,600, but the market value of my investment now over $12,000. So I think this is a really cool chart to break things down a little bit more. Now, if we zoom over here and look at my growth tab, you can see this month has been really good. Most of my positions are now winning positions. Now, no doubt, I still have a few losing positions. I'm down quite a bit on 3M. My biggest loser is MPW, but my winning positions far outweigh my losing positions as of right now. I have positions like AVGO, where I'm up over 82%. We can see JP Morgan up over 46%. Caterpillar over 42%, Microsoft over 42%, and there are tons of other winning positions here, up over 20 or even 30% as we can see. And my newest position that I've added, Waste Management, I'm actually already up 11.62%. So while it's really great to see nice short-term returns from the positions in my portfolio, you have to keep in mind the long-term goal of my portfolio is to one day be able to live off dividends. So I'm not really as concerned about the short-term performance of my portfolio as I am on focusing on buying quality dividend growth companies that will be able to increase the amount they pay out in dividends over time. So let's go ahead and zoom this chart back out a little bit and start breaking down my portfolio diversification. Now we can see right here, SCHD is by far the biggest holding in my portfolio. I think anyone that is a dividend growth investor should consider adding a lot of SCHD as kind of the basis for your portfolio and then add some high quality holdings along with it. We can see Microsoft, one of my largest positions, at around 8.5%. We can see Texas Instruments, another large holding at 3.4%, and Vici Properties, another fairly large position at 3%, and Lowe's sitting at 3.3%. So again, the focus for this portfolio is dividend growth. Now, if we scroll down here, we can see my stock allocation by industry. We can see ETF, that's basically SCHD, around 48.1%. Technology makes up around 16% of my portfolio. We also have consumer defensive around 5%, real estate around 8%, financials 8.2%, and consumer cyclical around 6.2%. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out just a little bit more. There's more things we need to touch on later on the video, such as my future portfolio outlook. That's really important to understand. But we're going to go ahead and jump forward and start breaking down exactly how much dividend income I made in the month of November. I'll go ahead and zoom out. And we can see right now my expected yearly dividend income now sitting at $5,032 every single year, which is $419.35 on average every single month. Now, how much of this came in the month of November? If we look right here, we can see I've clearly been trending in an upward direction, but it's definitely not my highest month ever. In the month of November, I made $213.43. Now, my all-time high came just a few months ago in September when I made $594. But if you're good at understanding trend lines, one of the things you'll notice here is I'll typically have a higher month followed by a couple of lower months, high month, couple low months, high months, couple low months, which means Next month is projected to be my highest month of dividend income ever. I'll be receiving my payment from SCHD in December, and again, this should be by far my biggest month of dividend income ever, so I'm really excited to see just how much dividend income I'll be able to make in the month of December. Let's go ahead and zoom back in and start breaking some of this down. Again, we can see again my portfolio value trending in the right direction, and although I saw a really nice big jump up this past month, I really didn't contribute hardly any capital to my portfolio. I only added around $300 to $500 of SCHD, which is quite a bit less than I typically try to do. If we come over here, we can see another allocation chart, but this one's a little bit different. It's very important that you know where your dividend income is coming from, which is why I look at my dividend income by industry. You don't want all of your dividend income to be coming from any one industry because that could pose a potential risk to your portfolio. So right now we can see ETF SCHD basically makes up around 53 to 54% of my dividend income. Real estate, while it's only 8% of my portfolio, makes up around 12.4% of the dividend income I receive from my portfolio. Consumer defensive around 9.8%. Again, technology, another example. Although it's a large holding in my portfolio as a whole, only 8% of my dividend income comes from technology. Come down here, we can see financials makes up around 8.6% of my dividend income. Come down here, we can basically see my dividend yield on cost for these different positions. So while I have a couple of higher yielding positions, the main focus, no doubt, is dividend growth holdings. The next chart we'll look at right here, we'll need to zoom out just a little bit to get a better view of it, but that's my projected annual dividend income, and we're looking at it every single month. So we can see when I started tracking this in September of 2022, I was projected to make around $1,345 a year in dividend income, and over this time period, it's climbed all the way up, now up to around $5,032 every single year. Now, the jump up from this past month wasn't too much as we can see, but again, I didn't add a lot of capital to my portfolio this month, but we also reinvest all of our dividends, and the holdings that we have in my portfolio also increase the amount to pay out in dividends every single year, which helps push up this yearly dividend income every now and then. Now, the last chart we'll look at is simply how much dividend income I'm making from each individual position, as we can see here, dividend income by stock. Altria Group is a pretty big payer. I make around $319 a year from them. Realty Income around $288. Vici Properties $240. We can also see Texas Instruments at $167. The rest is fairly diversified except for SCHD. Again, by far the largest holding in my portfolio, SCHD pays me over $2,500 every single year in dividend income, which again is the reason I expect next month to be my highest month of dividend income ever. Now, the next chart we're going to look at is Dividend Calendar, but first, let's take a look at Seeking Alpha. Seeking Alpha is my favorite investment research platform, and I use it in nearly all of my videos for a reason. So at a quick glance, we can easily see the price movement over lots of different time periods. We have some quick details right here, pretty important, such as the yield, short interest, we have 52-week high, 52-week low, and the day range. But we can also easily see their earnings report and expected earnings reports. We have access to all the financial statements, and I absolutely love being able to jump into the dividend metrics. If we go over to the dividend history tab, we can see dividend growth over time. We can see the dividend growth rate, something I love to look at, and we can also see dividend safety. In this example, we're looking at a real estate investment trust, so we can also see things like AFFO payout ratio, a metric that I think is extremely important that a lot of websites don't seem to cover. We also have insights to how they are growing over time, and we can easily chart them compared to peers or the S&P 500. So Seeking Alpha is one of my favorite platforms. You can get a huge discount for them at my link in the description. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is an extremely important way to track your dividend income over time, and that is a dividend calendar. Essentially what this is doing is it's allowing me to see exactly how much dividend income each position has paid me, how much dividend income I received each month, and how those dividend payments are growing over time. So for example, I'll go ahead and zoom in, and an easy example is to look at Realty Income right here. We can see I've been receiving dividend income from Realty Income since January of 2022. Because Realty Income increases the amount they pay out in dividends, I also reinvest dividends and add new capital. We can see those dividend payments from Realty are increasing every single month. So I've gone all the way from $5.83 to, if we zoom forward about a year, we can see I was receiving around $7.61, but if we keep coming forward even more, we can see this past month I received $24.25. So again, it's really easy to see how those dividend payments have increased every single month over the past few years. And now we can see exactly which positions pay me dividend in the month of November. And first off, we'll start with EPD. They paid me around $17.53. Like I already mentioned, $24.25 from Realty Income, almost $40 from OHI. I recently made a stock analysis video on them if you want to check them out. $23.74 from Verizon. Scroll down, we can see $5.86 from Starbucks, around $27 from Lowe's, $8.74 from Jeppy, $42 from Texas Instruments, $5.31 from Caterpillar. Scroll down a little bit more, we can see $17.14 from Jefferies Financials, and then finally $2.42 from my small Apple position. So overall, again, this added up to around $213 in the month of November. December should be a massive month. Now, the next dividend calendar we're going to look at is what I call a daily dividend calendar. We'll need to zoom out to see this just a little bit better, but essentially what we can do is see exactly what days we were paid dividend income and how much we received on that day. We can also see that my highest day in 2023 was $417. So I'll go ahead and zoom in and we can see what days we received dividend income in the month of November. The first was a good day at around $23.74. A couple of days with no dividend income. Then on the 6th and on the 8th, I received a few dividend payments, but the 14th through 16th made up the majority of my dividend income in the month of November. We can see I made around $108 over this time period, with a big day on the 15th paying me $64. Come over here, everything else pretty much slowed down from there. We can see a $17.53 day on November 21st and a $17 day on the 28th. So overall, pretty good month. I'm pretty happy with it. But there's still one thing that I do want to point out, and it's extremely important to understand, and that's how much dividend income will my portfolio be producing in the future, and how far am I from being able to live off of dividend income. And to analyze this, we need to jump over to my live off dividends analysis. Now, the first thing we need to understand is cost of living. As of right now, I'm projecting that my cost of living is around $4,000 a month. It's really probably a little bit lower than that, but I do want to be safe and conservative with my estimates. So with that being said, inflation on average is around 2% a year. So we can see my cost of living is going to increase over time. In 30 years from now, assuming 2% inflation, my monthly cost of living could be around $7,245 a month. So basically, in order to live off dividends, I need to get my monthly dividend payments above this black line. So if we jump over to my live off dividends analysis, we can see right here, this intersection is exactly the point at which I would be able to live off dividends. Now, how far away is that? Let's go ahead and come over here. I'll zoom in just a little bit more and we'll be able to break this down. We can see after 1 year, we still can't live off dividends. After 2 years, we can't. I'll start zooming down just a little bit more. After 10 years, we still can't live off dividends. And if we keep scrolling down, it looks like right here, this is the point at which we will be able to live off dividends. It's basically around 16 years because my monthly dividend payments will then surpass my monthly cost of living, which means at that point I can live off dividends. And during this time, we can see my account value should be around $1.9 million. The total dividends I would receive over this time period is around $438,000. And here's what's beautiful about this. As long as my dividend growth rate is above the rate of inflation, I can quit reinvesting dividends during this time period, and my dividend payments will still continue to grow faster than the rate of inflation, meaning I can live off of dividend payments indefinitely. Now, this is a huge problem for people who look for higher yielding stocks because they have lower dividend growth rates. So they try to live off dividends, but essentially the cost of living due to inflation will surpass their dividend income. So if we want to get a quick breakdown of exactly what this can look like, jump back over to our investment dashboard and we can see, assuming we are reinvesting dividends, 5 years from now, I could be receiving around $15,000 a year in dividend income. 15 years, almost $60,000 a year in dividend income. And this is where it gets really, really crazy. 30 years from now, I could be receiving over $316,000 a year in dividend income. Now, these values will change pretty dramatically if we say I don't reinvest dividends over this time period. We can see in 15 years, it'd be around $40,000 a year, which is $20,000 less than if we were reinvesting dividends. And in 30 years, if we don't reinvest dividends over this time period, I'd be receiving around $139,000 a year in dividend income, which is pretty amazing, but it's less than half than what it could be if I reinvested dividends. And that goes to show you the power of the dividend snowball and the importance of reinvesting your dividends over that time period. So there you go. That's exactly how much dividend income I made in the month of November from my dividend portfolio that is currently worth around $143,000. Every single month, I am uploading these videos to take you along on my journey and show you what it looks like to manage real real money. Like always, if you'd like to be able to join a community of dividend investors and get access to any of my spreadsheets like this one, then you can head over to my Patreon page at the link in the description. Again, thank you to Seeking Alpha for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check them out at my link in the description as well. And one last thing, if you want more updates on my personal portfolio, you can sign up for my free newsletter at the link in the description. So with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.